Ok, je vois les premières motos.
Ja, ja, ja. Zie je ook klein. Weet je wel. Wat is het? Redding aan het zeggen dat is. Man,
Ok, je vois la voiture du Grand-Duc, je vais sur elle.
Thank you very much for the audience. Yes. But you are so well informed. You are so well informed. You really keep abreast of the times. You are so abreast. Thank you very much.
Please be seated. Your Royal Highness, Prime Minister, Mr. President, Governors, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. As Vice President of the Bank and Secretary of the Board of Governors, it's my honour warmly to welcome you to the opening ceremony of the 4th annual meeting of the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, the first to take place outside Asia. We're very grateful indeed to the Government of Luxembourg for their kind hospitality and their excellent organisation. Later you will hear from the President of the AIIB, Jin Li-chun, from the Governor for Singapore and Deputy Chair of the Board of Governors, from the Governor for Egypt, also Deputy Chair of the Board of Governors, and finally from the Prime Minister of Luxembourg, and then from our guest of honour, His Royal Highness. My first task and great honour is to invite the Chairman of the Board of Governors and Finance Minister of Luxembourg, Mr. Pierre Gramegna, to address us.
Your Royal Highness, Mr. Prime Minister, Honourable President Jin Li-chun, distinguished governors and members of the Board of Directors, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Grand Duchy of Luxembourg, the green heart of Europe, a founding member of the European Union, and the birthplace of Robert Schuman, the spiritual father of the European dream. Welcome to the 4th annual meeting of the Asian Infrastructure and Investment Bank. It is indeed a great privilege to chair this event that is taking place for the first time here in Europe. Your Royal Highness, your presence is important and appreciated by us all, and is a testimony of your deep appreciation and commitment to peace and cooperation. Let me extend my sincere appreciation to the AIIB, which agreed to our offer to host this annual event. Thank you, President Jin Lichun, and thank you, Danny Alexander, for your trust in us, the same trust that we placed in you when this initiative was taken. This is a testament to Luxembourg's long-lasting commitment to multilateralism. The Grand Duchy's turbulent past is a true mirror of European history. During the Middle Ages, several princes of Luxembourg wore the crown of the Holy Roman Empire. In early modern times, our renowned fortress was a major cause of disagreement in the battle of great powers on our continent. And during the 20th century, we were the victims of World War I and World War II, and then acted as catalysts for the unification of Europe. History has thus taught us that cooperation and dialogue ensure peace and prosperity. It is therefore not surprising that multilateralism is in our DNA. Let me first devote a few thoughts on multilateralism. First and foremost, multilateralism and international cooperation matters, and it has proved successful in the last decades. Over the last 25 years, more than 1 billion people have been lifted out of extreme poverty, which has fallen to a record low, but is still present. Access to water, energy, and digital connectivity have made tremendous progress. Nevertheless, a lot more must be done if we want to achieve sustainable development goals of 2030 and tackle the formidable challenge of climate change. Only multilateralism and international cooperation can ensure to reach these objectives. Today's meeting is a shining example of such a common endeavor. Unfortunately, there are also signs of a declining path of multilateralism, and that is worrisome. The rise of nationalism, the temptation of unilateralism, and the looming risk of trade war shakes the very foundations of our international order. We need to stem the tide of unilateralism and safeguard the values of international cooperation. Two major events in the recent past stand out as historical milestones in this context. One is obviously the Paris Agreement on climate change, and the other one is the launch of the AIIB back in January 2016, an event I had the privilege to attend. This climate change conference of 2015, which is now being enacted, and the treaty of the AIIB have something in common. They want to make this planet a better place for all through responsible and sustainable investment and action. As a true believer in international cooperation, Luxembourg is honored to have become the first European member of the AIIB. The AIIB is arguably the most modern international financial institution in the world. With its motto, lean, clean and green, it has a very original and solid setup. What does an institution like the AIIB need? It needs institutions that are lean in order to achieve highest operational efficiency and quality. Second, it needs working methods that are clean and operate at the highest standards of governance. And third, it needs investments that are green in order to promote sustainable development, mindful of climate change and environment. Many achievements have been already made only since its existence 3.5 years ago. The bank has emerged as a beacon of multilateralism, while surpassing expectations of growth. Operations are spread over 17 countries and have initiated 45 projects, which have required investments of $8.5 billion. The number of members as we speak here and who are represented in this magnificent hall, the Philharmonie, has reached a number of 97. But let's knock on wood, if everything goes fine, by tomorrow we will have 3 more members and reach the number of 100. 2 members that are supposed to join tomorrow are Greece and Belgium, so 2 additional European members. All this is proof of the attractiveness of this wonderful institution. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to say a few words on climate change, an issue that is close to my heart because there is always a challenge of climate change in every initiative we take. If the AIIB wants to make a difference, climate change issues need to be in the forefront of all its investment decisions. But public money alone cannot do the job. If we want to switch from the billion of dollars, or as we are here in Europe, from the billions of euro to the trillions of euro, we need to crowd in the private sector. The public money can play the role of guarantee. The public money can help leverage and trigger larger projects. But we need the private sector. And we can learn from the lessons that we draw from the Juncker Plan and the European Fund for Strategic Investment, which the European Union started 5 years ago. Indeed, the European Fund for Strategic Investment mobilized 335 billion euro in additional investment inside the European Union since 2015, creating 750,000 new jobs. By the end of next year, the number of jobs that have been created through this initiative will reach 1.4 million. FC epitomizes the success of the strategy of public-private partnership under the stewardship of the European Investment Bank. The recent conference organized this month by the Bridge Forum Dialogue here in Luxembourg at the headquarters of the AIIB, with Danny Alexander as a keynote speaker, highlighted the common inspiration that drives the AIIB and the European Investment Bank. Over the last 5 years, Luxembourg has implemented a series of initiatives to redirect financial flows towards green and sustainable projects. Let me mention the Luxembourg AIIB Finance Platform for Climate Change and the International Climate Finance Accelerator. Let me also mean the initiative taken by the Luxembourg Stock Exchange to set up the Luxembourg Green Exchange that lists exclusively green bonds or sustainable or responsible or social bonds. Only a couple of weeks ago, the World Bank announced that it would list all its sustainable bonds in Luxembourg. Similarly, Luxembourg has taken part in all initiatives in the field of climate change. Let me mention here the Coalition of Finance Ministers for Climate Action, which was launched in the beginning of the year, a ministerial group supporting the use of fiscal policy and mobilization of climate change to promote domestic and global action on climate change. I'm pleased that several seminars that are taking place today here at this 4th annual meeting are concentrating on the commitments of the Paris Agreement, the importance of clean energy, and the future of sustainable finance. Ladies and gentlemen, cooperation and connectivity are the two core themes of this annual meeting. As a Minister of Finance of a country with a leading financial center, the second largest investment fund center worldwide, I know that cooperation between public and private sector is crucial to create and implement win-win strategies. Creating synergies in mobilizing financial resources of governments, international institutions and private sector is key to achieving a better connectivity between Europe and Asia. A better connected Europe and Asia will help people to have higher standards of living. It will also create new job opportunities as well as better education, cross-collaboration and research. Investments in transport corridors, energy, human and digital networks will strengthen the resilience of our societies and regions and prepare for a low-carbon future. Recent decades have seen a dramatically accelerating pace in development and adoption of new technologies. This is transforming our life, and harnessing frontiers technology will be crucial in achieving more prosperous, sustainable and healthy and inclusive societies. Digital connectivity is a high priority of the Luxembourg government. The newly created Ministry for Digitalization epitomizes our recognition of how important it is to recognize the digital challenges and transform them in digital and economic and social opportunities. In 2019, the Digital Economy and Society Index ranked Luxembourg second for digital connectivity in the European Union. Luxembourg is therefore the right place to put the theme of cooperation and connectivity at the heart of this annual conference. In conclusion, I would like to congratulate the AIIB for being a ray of hope for multilateralism. Founding this new bank, President Jin Lichun, was the right choice, and it was a courageous decision. Let me give you 4 reasons why. The AIIB is an optimistic and concrete initiative to change the future. Second, the AIIB strengthens the rules-based international system. Third, the AIIB is building mutual trust between shareholders from all over the world. And finally, the AIIB is a key player for leveraging private capital. I wish, in conclusion, to thank all those who worked very hard in the front stage and in the backstage to make this event a success. And in particular, I'd like to thank my whole team in the Ministry of Finance. I wish us all an interesting annual meeting, and interesting discussions, and to the more than 1,500 participants, a lovely stay in our beautiful Luxembourg. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Minister, for those words of welcome, and thank you for your personal leadership in bringing Luxembourg into the AIIB and for bringing the annual meeting to Luxembourg. I now have the pleasure to introduce the President of the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, Mr. Jin Lichun, to address us. President Jin.
Your Royal Highness, Grand Duke of Luxembourg, Prime Minister, Finance Minister, distinguished governors and members of the Board of Directors, honored guests, ladies and gentlemen. We in the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank are honored to be invited to this beautiful country for our 4th annual meeting, the first to be held outside Asia. I would like to thank you, Your Royal Highness, Prime Minister, Finance Minister, for your generous hospitality. Since we arrived, we have been overwhelmed by and immersed in an atmosphere of friendship, harmony, liveliness, and greenness. Luxembourg was the first among the European countries to join the preparation to create a new multilateral development bank. From the very beginning, Luxembourg played an important role in designing and shaping AIIB's governance for the 21st century. 3.5 years into our operation, it's time we came to Luxembourg and to Europe to inform our European stakeholders about how we have been developing. Finance Minister Pierre Gramegna, I recall vividly our conversation on the creation of our bank. Your insights and frankness touched me immensely. You were clear-cut in your position, what AIIB should be, what it shouldn't be, what AIIB should do and shouldn't do. I'm sure your ideas about the identity and behavior of the proposed bank represented the opinion and sentiment of Luxembourg and its people. Later on, when touring other European countries, what I heard from prospective shareholders convinced me that your words reflected the broader European perspective. I would like to take this opportunity with you here, Your Royal Highness, Prime Minister and Finance Minister, to announce AIIB's intention to list the Euro Medium-Term Note Program on the Luxembourg Stock Exchange. Our bank was conceived and born in Asia, but we owe its birth and growth to the wisdom and labor of all the founding members. European shareholders have prodigiously contributed to the creation of this new multilateral development bank. As a result, AIIB holds distinctively European characteristics, and in adherence to our values of being lean, clean, and green, we set the bar at a par with the governance structures of other MDBs, of which European countries are founding members. Those values show that we have zero tolerance for corruption and that we promote green economy. There has always been a strong bond between Asia and European countries. Asia and Europe share the same vast continent. We are physically bound to each other. Yet tough terrain impedes this geographical affinity, hampering exchanges in commerce, investment, and culture. Now is the time to improve our connectivity in all its dimensions. AIIB is mandated to improve connectivity among its members and among the regions. But operations in infrastructure investment must adapt and evolve. Emphasis should be placed on the green approach to building infrastructure. Project implementation should be green. Operation and maintenance of facilities should be green. Overall growth and development stemming from infrastructure should be even greener. On December the 12th, 2015, just a few weeks before AIIB became operational in January 2016, about 200 countries concluded negotiations on the Paris Agreement. It was within this atmosphere of multilateral efforts to address the formidable challenge of climate change that our bank was born. Climate change mitigation is crucial for all of us, and more importantly, for generations to come. There's no alternative but to tackle this challenge head-on. We are now faced with a global situation far more complicated than what it was 3.5 years ago. Overall, global growth has been stabilized, but protectionism and disruption of trade and cross-border investments constitute a major risk to many countries. Many low-income countries are particularly vulnerable to market turbulence. Their exports are likely to suffer setbacks, their debt sustainability adversely affected. The complexity of our global political and economic situation should not inhibit us from investing in priority projects where our members need them most. A well-connected investment program in infrastructure and other productive sectors in low-income countries will boost growth. It will create jobs and reduce poverty. It will empower women. This will then drive a higher level of development where governments can afford more investments in education and health, ultimately realizing long-term economic and social achievement. AIIB and other MDBs have a crucial role to play in this regard. At present, risk-averse investors are allocating money to developed market equities with major indices at or near all-time highs and to low-risk fixed income. This is driving bond yields across Europe into marginally positive territory. The main issue is that the mechanisms for turning these vast savings pools into long-term investment is, sadly, still limited. Asian equity and fixed income capital markets are still at an early stage of development in terms of depth, breadth, and impact. Infrastructure projects are typically large, require long gestation period, and demand a stable, predictable policy and regulatory climate amenable and conducive to such investment. Economists in many developing multilateral banks, including AIIB, have done research and analysis on the constraints affecting growth in developing Asia. They still point to lack of infrastructure investment as the main cause. A converging view is that developing countries should invest around 8% of their GDP in infrastructure. This is a level of investment that not only meets basic needs, but also helps countries catch up economically. For every dollar spent in growth capital in formation, 40 cents should be spent on infrastructure. While some Asian economies have increased their investments to 6 to 7% of GDP, other economies are struggling, particularly countries at low income levels. Estimates vary, but our best analysis points to many lower and lower middle income countries, members needing to boost infrastructure investment by a third. Unable to mobilize private capital for infrastructure investment, they must consider allocating public resources for that purpose without putting pressure on their public balance sheets. While it is important for developing economies to raise their infrastructure investment, it must be done sustainably, not least on the issue of debt. New investments must increase the country's capacity to service debt, not just having debts to service. Quality means selecting projects with high economic returns, designing them well, and financing them sustainably. Quality means ensuring that projects benefit the local population, do no harm to people or the environment, and leave no chance for corruption. This is what it means to be lean, clean, and green. For those members with a high level of debt, we have to strike a proper balance between budget control to ensure debt sustainability and well-coordinated, well-designed infrastructure investments to pave the path for long-term development. This is exactly the challenge facing AIIB and our client members. This is the very reason why we need to ramp up our concerted efforts to help these countries. We have a sense of urgency to fulfill our duty. Over the last 3 years and a half, we at AIIB, the board of directors, the management, and the staff, have all worked together in close collaboration to make this bank ready for the challenge. We have noticed that while existing barriers to infrastructure developments are being rolled back, new ones are raised. This is a cause for concern. The collective wisdom, knowledge, and influence to removing these impediments lies in this very room. It lies within all of you, governors, directors, policymakers, private financiers, civil society, and the media are all here today. By working together, we have the power to remove these roadblocks. Together, we can create domestic reforms for policy, coordination, and think holistically about country and regional infrastructure and supporting facilities. Collaboration and connectivity is the theme of our annual meeting for the simple reason that infrastructure is complex, particularly when it comes to connectivity projects. It will take all of us who are here today to work together to move the needle. We need concrete actions today. MDBs are here to help smooth over these challenges. We believe infrastructure bottlenecks can only be effectively resolved through partnership, through risk sharing, through international cooperation. I met President Malpass of the World Bank in April when I discussed with him the cooperation between our two banks and more broadly about collaboration among all MDBs. I shared similar conversations with President Nakao of AIIB and President Chakrabarty of EBRD, among others. I would like to pay special tribute to President Hoyer of AIIB, who has kindly hosted AIIB, our board of directors and the management, this week. We are looking forward to deepening our partnership and co-finance. We are going to expand our programs beyond Asia because Asia cannot sustain itself without working with other regions. We live in the same small village. We are all neighbors, irrespective of the vast ocean that separates us geographically. Governors and ministers, if we have not done anything in your country, in your region, and your individual places, please understand that we have you and your people in our minds. We are moving towards you. MDBs also need to evolve and adapt to new trends in financing infrastructure. How we cooperate, we govern ourselves and support our clients must not stagnate, or we risk missing opportunities. Many of our regional projects, recent projects, are evidence of expanding capabilities. They show our commitment to partnership and working with our clients to bring well-designed projects to fruition. I'm delighted that at this annual meeting, AIIB will introduce its variable spread loan product. This will give our borrowers the flexibility to select interest terms that are consistent with a sovereign debt management strategy and suited for their debt servicing capacity. This year, we will also introduce local currency products in selected currencies, providing more options to our borrowers. Building off the AAA credit ratings received from all three major credit rating agencies, we issued our debut global dollar bond this year. Investors from around the world participate in the bond, and as such, it priced at the tightest level in line with our global MDB peers. This positions our bank as a premium supranational. In December last year, the General Assembly of the United Nations granted the AIIB permanent observer status. This is an important milestone for our bank. That such a privilege was granted with the full support of the international community, including states that are not members of AIIB, underscores the high expectations that the bank will make a real and lasting contribution to economic growth, development, and enhanced connectivity in Asia. We are looking forward to our ever-growing membership. Tomorrow, the Board of Governors will consider, and we hope will approve, the membership of new applicants, bring our total number of approved members to 100. This will be another significant landmark for the bank. Collaboration and partnership must extend to all involved. AIIB is inclusive, open, and diverse in its views. In this 21st century world, we must be flexible and agile if we want to achieve the great goals set out for our new organization. Now, in the final year of our startup phase, the basic building blocks of the bank are in place. We have achieved much in our early development, but a lot of heavy lifting still needs to be done. Governors, ministers, and board members, we see it as our job to position AIIB to meet the challenges of today and the future. We're doing our utmost to steer our business to a stronger place with each passing year. I'm heartened by your presence here in Luxembourg because I've seen the power of collaboration in action, yet we have only just begun. I believe the future for Asia is bright. With your help, we have become the bank striving for connectivity in Asia and beyond. With your help, we will become the bank that connects Asia to the world. Thank you very much.
Thank you, President Jin. The bank is a multilateral institution, and as President Jin said, our growing membership now includes members from every continent. So we will now hear short contributions from one governor from our members in the Asia region and one governor from out with the region. So first, we will hear from the governor for Singapore and vice chair of our Board of Governors. Please give a very warm welcome to Minister Indrani Raja.
Your Royal Highness, Grand Duke, Prime Minister, Finance Minister, President Jin, distinguished governors and the Board of Directors, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to thank the government of Luxembourg and AIIB and congratulate them for the hospitality and excellent arrangements for this morning's event. Infrastructure is a critical economic and social enabler that, if done well, can enable a virtuous cycle of growth. Singapore welcomes this year's theme, cooperation and connectivity. It's timely for us to look at ways to deepen integration so as to facilitate trade and investment flows, thereby connecting and bringing prosperity to all our peoples in line with the Sustainable Development Goals. Since its establishment, the AIIB has contributed substantively to regional infrastructure development. But there is more that we can and must do together, since Asia's population is not only growing, but also rapidly urbanizing. And this means that our demand for sustainable infrastructure will continue to grow. It's therefore crucial that we foster a conducive environment to support the development of good infrastructure projects. The recent G20 Principles for Quality Infrastructure Investment is a good starting point. As the bank enters its next phase of growth, it must continue to strengthen its role not only as a financier, but also as a knowledge institution for stakeholders along the infrastructure value chain. It could do so in the following ways. First, strengthening engagement with its peers. We commend the AIIB's efforts in collaborating with other multilateral development institutions, such as the signing of a co-financing framework agreement with the World Bank and the Memorandum of Understanding for strengthening cooperation with the Asian Development Bank. We encourage more of such cooperation. They are key to addressing development challenges, including to promote good governance and other best practices throughout the life cycle of infrastructure projects. Second, by working with governments more systematically. The AIIB should continue working with governments in an open, inclusive manner through regional initiatives like the Belt and Road Initiative, or BRI, as well as the Trilateral Partnership for Infrastructure Investment in the Indo-Pacific. The bank can lead the way for building effective country platforms with the G20 Eminent Persons Group on Global Financial Governance that's recommended and is being implemented. Through strong country ownership and partnership with the bank, the AIIB can help ensure that invested projects are aligned with national priorities, encourage the adoption of core standards for projects, and maximize development impact across various development partners. Third, by mobilizing the private sector more effectively. Asia's infrastructure needs are huge and cannot be met by public funds alone. Private sector capital must be mobilized if we are to bridge the infrastructure financing gap. The AIIB recognizes this and has developed its strategy for mobilizing private capital for infrastructure. We commend the bank's participation in non-sovereign projects, as well as its steady progress to originate, structure, and execute standalone non-sovereign deals. It's not just capital. The private sector also has a vast range of professional expertise, including in dispute resolution. There is value in tapping on such expertise. To this end, Singapore has recently introduced the Singapore Infrastructure Dispute Management Protocol, or the SIDP. It seeks to establish a panel of professional experts, which could include lawyers, engineers, and financiers, who provide advice to resolve infrastructure disputes at an early stage without parties having to go through lengthy arbitration or litigation processes, or, at least if they do, having the issues crystallized, thereby reducing costs and time. We would encourage the AIIB to adopt the SIDP in relevant projects. We've also, in Singapore, developed arbitration, litigation, and now mediation. Next month, the International Convention on Mediation will be signed in Singapore. That is effectively the mediation equivalent of the New York Convention for Arbitration. So we would encourage members to look at the Mediation Convention as an additional means of resolving disputes. Singapore, as an infrastructure hub in Asia, with an extensive ecosystem to support infrastructure, stands ready to support the AIIB in its important agenda. We're committed to working through Infrastructure Asia as a platform to connect local and international stakeholders across the value chain, encourage information exchange, facilitate infrastructure investments, and enable infrastructure players in the region to tap on these opportunities. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed, Governor, for those remarks. We will now hear short remarks from the Governor for Egypt, the Vice Chair of the Board of Governors, who represents our non-regional members. So please welcome to the stage Mr. Mohamed Mait, Finance Minister of Egypt.
Your Excellencies, His Royal Highness Grand Duke Henry, the Grand Duke of Luxembourg, Prime Minister and Minister of Finance of Luxembourg, distinguished governors, President Jen, and heads of delegates, ladies and gentlemen. Allow me to express my gratitude and appreciation to the Grand Duke of Luxembourg for the excellent organization and warm hospitality. It is indeed a pleasure to speak today at the 4th annual AIIB meeting. Egypt was amongst the founding members of the AIIB, the first African country to join bank, and a country that firmly believes in the bank mission and mandate of contributing to sustainable transformation of Asia and the rest of the world through enhancing cross-border connectivity, ensuring sustainable infrastructure, and mobilizing private capital. Egypt is strategically located at a vital crossroads between Africa, Asia, and Europe, and hence we certainly support the bank focus this year on cooperation and connectivity. Egypt's distinguished location along with Suez Canal has made us of special significance to the world, serving as a trade interlocutor for the East and the West. Recently, Egypt has adopted an ambitious homegrown and comprehensive economic reform program. This program has yielded numerous gains, including the restoration of macroeconomic stability and regaining of market and investor confidence, growth pickup that has been job-rich and broadly based and sizable movement of its public finance and its sustainability. Building on these successes, we are working on safeguarding macroeconomic stability and enhancing structural reforms to unleash Egypt's potential and to secure a high inclusive growth path. Institutional reform is also being deepened and broadened to create a hospital environment for increased private sector participation. Upgrading infrastructure base is a top priority for us. The G20's Global Infrastructure Outlook points out that there is a significant infrastructure financing gap, estimated at around $230 billion in Egypt alone over the next decade. The infrastructure investment gap within Asia and Africa is estimated to be around $630 billion per year, and this gap would reach around $1 trillion over the next decade when taking into consideration funding needs of social infrastructure. It is also worth mentioning that the current infrastructure gap in Africa costs its countries around 2% of annual GDP growth. Therefore, many governments are shifting to explore more commercial financing, mobilize private investment for large infrastructure projects, and utilize public-private partnerships for infrastructure projects. This is also required developing cross-continental economic integration that can spur sustainable economic development, progress, and prosperity. Thus, it is absolutely essential to the necessary framework to catalyze the mobilization of private sector capital alongside the public sector to develop major projects that encourage cross-border connectivity and fill the huge infrastructure financing gap across our respective regions. There are many initiatives that embody our desire to enhance cross-border connectivity. Initiatives such as the Belt and Road Initiative, as well as the Asian-African Growth Corridor, both aim to enhance cooperation between Asia and Africa. It is also with great pleasure that I inform you that the recent 12th Extraordinary African Union Summit held a few days ago in Niger saw the official launch of the operational phase of the African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement. This agreement covers a market of 1.2 billion people with an estimated GDP worth of 2.5 trillion US dollars across 55 member states of the African Union. This landmark achievement offers additional infrastructure development opportunities that require all of us to deepen our joint cooperation. Let me conclude by saying that there is a need for us to commit ourselves to fulfill the dreams and aspirations of our people. The only way to fulfill their aspiration is through building strategic and inclusive partnership between government, international organizations, global financial institutions, as well as the public and the private sector to close current infrastructure financing gap. It is important to ensure that needed mechanisms are in place to mobilize adequate capital to finance in a sustainable manner our development needs, including securing reliable technical assistance from development, financial institutions, and the multilateral development banks to our countries. Let me thank you very much for allowing me to address you. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Governor. Luxembourg is a founding member of the AIIB and was the first European Union member state to commit to taking part in the formation of the bank. We're delighted that you are also the first European country to host this annual meeting. Therefore, it is my great pleasure to invite the Prime Minister of Luxembourg, Mr. Xavier Bettel, to address us.
Your Royal Highness, dear Speaker of Parliament, Members of Parliament, President of the State Council, my dear Deputy Prime Ministers, distinguished governors and members of the board, directors, excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, dear friends. Huanying Lai Diallo Luxembourg. Marhaban bikum fi Luxembourg. I think my Chinese or my Arabian are not perfect, but that should be welcome to Luxembourg. And I have to tell you that I'm very, very pleased to welcome all of you to Luxembourg. Dear Governor, I remember when we had to take the decision to join or not to join. And as you can imagine, it was not the easiest decision. Because some colleagues told us, don't do it. Don't do it. But in my country, we have something in which is, I think, one of our strengths, is to believe. To believe in things. My country was not always the rich country it is today. My country was a poor country. We were an agricultural country. And we were able to always try to be the first mover, to be able to do things, because we believed in those things. That's why we believed in the steel. And we became a rich country because of the steel production in our country. Then we believed in finance. And we are still one for the funds, the first in Europe and the second in the world. And the banking place is one of the most important in the world. We believed in communication. SES is one of the biggest satellites company in the world. We believed in media, with RTL, one of the biggest broadcaster in Europe, which was even the channel of freedom, where a curtain divided Europe was the news, the free news in some Eastern country. And we believed in our Asian friends. Even if some countries said, don't do it, we did it. And we had discussion in the Council of Government where we thought, we have to make it. We believe in it. And I'm very happy that we were the first one. I know that my friend at that time, David Cameron, was not that happy because he was the second one. That happens. But the fact was, we believed and we wanted to do things. It's the same like Europe. We believed in Europe. You know, I belong to a generation, I never lived a war. I grew up here freely in this country from different roots. My grandmother was Russian Orthodox, my grandfather was a Polish Jew, my other grandmother was a French, not very religious, and my grandfather was a Catholic from Luxembourg. And even in my country, I should not forget that in the Second World War, I could have been punished, being liberal, having Jewish blood, being married to men, all these different things which today seems accepted. And it's not accepted everywhere. And we believed in this peace project in '57. And if we would have, at that time, asked all the others, do you believe in this peace project? People would have said, Germany and France together around the table, this will be for 6 months. And we are still around the table. It's not always easy, but we believe in a common project. We believe in this fact that we are able to live in peace today, after '57, the biggest, longest ever peace project we have in our history. And we are all different. We have different traditions, we have different culture, we have different languages. But we respect each other. We speak to each other. And the biggest problem is nowadays that we just speak about each other, but we forget to speak with each other. And we believe in Luxembourg, and I see the symbol, and I really want to thank the whole team of the Ministry of Finance for the organization here, is this bridge. Maybe you just passed a bridge to come here. Luxembourg is not only, it was a fortress. My country was a fortress. And with the Treaty of London, we opened our walls. And we even believed in the others. I was mayor of this city before being prime minister. This city has 17%, over 70% of non-Luxembourgers. And during the last elections, we had no one elected from an extreme right party. So we believe that being different, being open, being ready to take next challenges together is the key of success. And if we all in the world would have this respect, it would be much more easier. And we want to be partners. And when I went to Boao Forum, wow, it's a B, an O, an A, and an O, Forum, and I had a discussion with Li Keqiang. We signed this Road and Belt initiative together as Luxembourgish country. Because we believe in exchange, we believe in bridges, we believe in the fact that no one of us can resolve common problems by himself. And dear Governor, dear Pierre, you both spoke about the climate. I was very lucky to have an official visit to China just after the announcement of some countries, especially one country, to resign from Paris Agreement. And the fact was it going to be domino effect? And I had a meeting with your president in China who told me no, we want to stick to it. And I fully believe that we have to understand that economy and ecology are not enemies if we are able to do it on the right time, on the right direction. And we cannot say that we don't care about what will be the state of our planet after we lived on it. We cannot do that. We cannot change the past, but we have to change our future. And you said about infrastructure, our government had the ambition to invest, because not investing today in our society is leaving a debt to the next generations. And not being responsible would be the biggest mistake of our generation for the next generation. So thank you so much for the trust in my country. Thank you so much for the fact that you gave us the possibility to work together. I'm very happy that you are here today in Luxembourg. Very close to here, you have the European Investment Bank, which is the counterpart in Europe. I hope to see you much more often in Luxembourg in future. 谢谢。
Thank you very much indeed, Prime Minister. That affirmation of European values, I think, resonated with many of us in this hall. And thank you for sharing with us your Chinese. I've been living in Beijing for 3.5 years, and you've already achieved more on that front than I have. And thank you for your support and guidance for the bank. Your Royal Highness, we are honoured by your presence today. We look forward very much to your remarks, and it is my great pleasure and privilege to invite you to address the annual meeting. Your Royal Highness.
Presidents, Ministers, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. 75 years ago, the Allies landed in Normandy. D-Day was the turning point in the fight against the Nazis. A year later, World War II ended, which marked a long period of peace and prosperity for Europe. Delegates from 44 nations met in Bretton Woods in July 1944 to agree upon a series of rules for a new international monetary system. The two major accomplishments of the conference were the creation of the International Monetary Fund and the International Bank of Reconstruction and Development. Today, on July 12, 2019, nearly 100 nations have come together here in Luxembourg to affirm their commitment to international economic cooperation and sustainable development as the best way to preserve peace, security, and combat poverty. My father, Grand Duke Jean, who sadly passed away 2 months ago, would have been proud to see the spirit of cooperation and openness. Having spent more than 2 years on the battlefields during the World War II, and having witnessed the devastating consequences of extremism and nationalism. For Luxembourg, international cooperation, partnership, and friendship remain the most effective tools to achieve global security and prosperity. Since 1980, development cooperation has been at the forefront of Luxembourg's foreign policy. The country invests more than 1% of its gross national income into development aid. Our nation is a founding member of many international organizations and institutions, such as the European Union, the United Nations, the Council of Europe, the Bretton Woods institutions, and the OECD. Multilateralism frameworks have proven to be more democratic, inclusive, and strong, even when they face difficult challenges. It was therefore a logical step for Luxembourg to join the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank as the first non-regional member. Many more countries have joined since. In times of global opportunities and uncertainties, international financial institutions, such as the AIIB, are a key ingredient to a multilateral system based on the rule of law. This is needed in a time where climate change and conflicts present increasing dangers to lives of millions and where human rights are under threat around the world. Global solutions are crucial to tackle these problems. The theme of the 2019 annual meeting is cooperation and connectivity. By 2050, 2/3 of the global population will be living in cities. This rapid urbanization poses a major threat to sustainable development and biodiversity. Improved connectivity and smart mobility will contribute to the objective of the Paris Agreement to keep the increase in the global temperature under 2 degrees. The infrastructure of tomorrow must improve the quality of life of millions of people while being sustainable. Working together to create sustainable cross-regional investment can help revive the old routes networks. The Asian Silk Road played a crucial role in the development of the civilization of Europe, the Middle East, China, Japan, India, and the Horn of Africa. By contributing to building new Silk Roads, the AIIB promotes free trade, open borders, and economic cooperation. Only through international cooperation can we shape political, economic, and social development. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, at the beginning of this year, my dear wife, the Grand Duchess, launched an initiative to focus on the distress, isolation, and stigmatization of women who became victims of sexual violence in conflict zones. She placed women and children's rights at the heart of her humanitarian action. We are therefore pleased that Luxembourg and the AIIB are co-organizing a panel that focuses on issues of gender equality in the field of sustainable infrastructure. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, connectivity between Europe and Asia is vital for peace, stability, economic prosperity, and inclusive development. Achieving the Sustainable Development Goals is our common duty and responsibility. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Your Royal Highness. That concludes the opening ceremony. Members of the Board of Governors and heads of delegations, the family photo will take place on this stage in 10 minutes' time. Thank you all for attending the opening ceremony. I hope you will enjoy to the full the rich program of seminars, events, business development workshops over the next 2 days, and that the conversations that take place here will lead to practical cooperation and investment in infrastructure projects in the coming years. Ladies and gentlemen, while the Grand Duke leaves the event, please rise. If everyone now can leave the room, but the governors and heads of delegation could stay for the family photo. Thank you very much indeed.